Now let's turn to Burundi, a country torn apart by ethnic tensions, a nation still struggling to emerge from a 12-year civil war sparked off 28 years ago by an intractable conflict between the Tutsi minority and the Hutu majority. In 2020, the president, Pierre Nkurunziza, died suddenly in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a new leader, Evariste Ndayishimiye, took over. Since then, he's tried to build stronger ties with countries like Nigeria, working with the Nigerian ambassador to Burundi to, among other things, establish a joint commission, secure visa on arrival for Nigerians, and set up an educational exchange program. So how much is this new relationship likely to benefit Nigeria? And after years of violence breaking out everywhere and people having to dodge machete-wielding mobs, how safe and steady are things in that benighted country, Burundi, today? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the Nigerian ambassador to Burundi, Elijah Oyeagbah. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so very much, Charles, for having me.
So Burundi, a country we all know, torn apart by bloody ethnic violence and a civil war, a repressive government under Pierre Nkurunziza, who died in 2020 and was replaced by the current president, Evariste Ndayishimiye. Has he broken that pattern of conflict and repression?
Thank you so very much, Charles, for having me. Burundi, obviously, you know the history, is a country that you can more or less classify as a pariah state post-2015. But of course, leading to that crisis of 2015 was the amendment of their constitution. And of course, you know the late president organized an elections that he didn't contest in. That was the election.
Yeah, but a lot of people said was rigged in favor of someone he wanted to come in.
Yes, but I don't have that details. But at the end of the day, there was a president-elect. And then he died before handover. The Supreme Court of Burundi ruled that since there was already a president-elect, that he should take oath of office, and that was how he came on board. And by then, there were lots of sanctions on Burundi. The United States had sanctioned them, the EU had sanctioned them, and all, as a result of the challenges, that was, that came about as a result of the reigns of Pierre Nkurunziza. But earlier on this year, the current president have done a lot of work in trying to get those sanctions off. The United Nations presence in Burundi has also drastically reduced. The UN now have postings to Burundi as a family posting. What that means is that Burundi is now safe enough for United Nations staff to go in with their staff.
Okay, so you mean the UN has increased its presence?
Yes, the UN has increased its presence. They reduced. Actually, there's a part of the United Nations that deals with conflict and security.
Right. Okay, I see what you mean.
Shut down. Yes.
So that part of it has reduced, but the other part has gone up.
But the other part now means that, as a staff of United Nations, your family can comfortably going into Burundi and do businesses there.
Well, actually, to be fair, I've been to Burundi. Yes. I've been to Bujumbura. I was at the time a BBC correspondent, and I was there when they had the conflict. I went to places and I could see people's limbs and heads hacked off, and it was an absolutely horrendous experience. So I'm glad to see that you're saying that things have improved. Well, how long have you been Nigeria's ambassador to Burundi?
I have been there for a year and 7 months now.
Okay, so you're still a new kid on the block.
Absolutely.
But then you seem to have done quite a lot, because I was going to ask you, what would you say has been the high point of your time as ambassador there in terms of strengthening relations between Bujumbura and Abuja?
Oh, thank you. I would say that the relations between Nigeria and Burundi is at all-time high. When we came in, we had the privilege of having the inaugural edition of the Nigeria-Burundi Joint Commission. And that exercise, gave about a couple of memorandum of understanding being signed by the two countries. We had the one on education cooperation, where we now have exchange programs between universities in Burundi and Nigerian universities. And There is also a Nigerian-owned university at the moment in Bujumbura at the backdrop of that agreement. And, we also signed MOU on political consultation. And at the moment, we've basically agreed on the terms of having official and diplomatic passport holders come into Burundi without any visa at all. In addition to
visa on arrival.
No, we've basically agreed that if you have an official passport, just like we have with China, Turkey, South Africa, you can actually, if you're a government official, you can actually enter the country without visas at all. It goes both ways, it's reciprocity. So we've the high point basically is the setting up of the Nigeria-Burundi Business Council, which we did earlier on this year. And it's basically to allow the private sectors, participants in both countries to come in and find expression, look at investment opportunities in both countries and take maximum advantage of that. As a follow-up to that, we held the maiden edition, again, of the Nigerian-Burundi Business Summit, where we focused on agriculture, focused on education, focused on ICT, focused on entertainment, because these are areas that Nigerians have done very well. And of course, the Burundian counterparts were looking for opportunities to have that very closer ties with Nigeria. And as a result of that, Burundian companies and Nigerian companies executed MOUs as well. There is presently an MOU between a Burundian company and a Nigerian company to do fertilizer up to the tune of about $20 million or so. That's actually money coming the other way. Even though at this point in time there are a lot of
you mean money coming to Nigeria?
Yes, absolutely. Right, okay. Yes, which is basically what we are supposed to do.
Yeah,
so
of course.
I'm an economist, so I actually do a lot in economic diplomacy. Yeah.
But Nigeria, of course, well, I mean, that's fairly impressive stuff. But Nigeria, of course, a country that's had its share of ethnic conflict. And as the 2023 elections draw near, there are concerns that things could be even more polarized. What do you think Nigeria can learn from Burundi in terms of avoiding the mistakes that Burundi made that plunged it into that bloody ethnic conflict?
Oh, thank you very much. There has been a lot of learning points for me. Politically, I have taken my time to study the politics of Burundi. The difference, we fought a civil war in Nigeria. And after the civil war, we continued as though nothing happened. Burundi have had their share of violence. And I'll tell you some of the things that they've amended in their constitution that I feel that countries like Nigeria need to begin to look at. If you have an election, a general election, presidential elections, for example, after the elections, the party that comes second produces the vice president in the country. If you go to Burundi's Senate today, it is 50-50 tribe and gender. It means that every province or state, like we have in Nigeria, produces two senators. One must be a male, one must be a female, the other must be a Hutu, the other must be a Tutsi. It means that they've taken into account some of the challenges that led to their, ethnic crisis, and they've sort of amended that in their constitution. Now the question will be, what if anything happens to the president? Their constitution is structured in such a way that if anything happens to the president, it's not the vice president that takes over. It is actually the leader of the parliament who is ordinarily a member of the ruling party. So there are a few things that have sort of tweaked in their constitution to be able to, calm down some of these ethnic violences and challenges.
And that appears to be holding, is it?
Oh yes, absolutely, right. It is. At the moment, they speak with one voice. The challenge, the Hutu-Tutsi issue is not just about Burundi. There's also the Rwanda part of it.
Which is literally across the river.
There's also the DRC part of it.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
There's still a tension between the diplomatic relations.
But they're doing something about
it
in a way that gives a sense of inclusion.
Oh yes. Right. As a country, Burundi, they are, because they are at the moment working with one another to try to address some of this. And of course, the vice president have full constitutional powers, so it's not like a celebrity vice president. So he has his powers. He has some offices that some agencies that report directly to him. So I think that's some of the things I believe we needed to do. Why don't Nigeria that fought a civil war? Some people were killed, in the southeastern part of the country, and we carried on and we said no victor, no vanquished. Properties were destroyed, people lost their properties, and we just carried on as if nothing happened.
And it's very important that this point that you've made about Burundi and the lessons that Nigeria could learn from it. I'm glad you brought that up. But let's turn closer to home now. You are a member of the ruling APC.
Yes.
There's been a lot of focus on the divisions in the PDP, but many punters argue that the APC is equally split. Just how divided is the APC in your assessment with its patchwork of coalition and alliance partners?
Thank you very much for this question. I actually listened to my father, Dr. Senator Ben Obi, speak about the issues that some of the challenges that the PDP is going through at the moment. But I tell you, he's right about APC, people coming together to obviously form an alliance. But what is a political party? It's an association of the willing. People have to agree to work together. And for a ruling party, there will always be a challenge. People are jostling for power. People are jostling for position. So it is not out of place to have challenges within a ruling party.
Yeah, but isn't it a bit odd that the APC, I mean, I know you're talking about the challenges, but if the APC is united, why aren't we seeing President Buhari campaigning with Bola Tinubu? Why aren't we seeing the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo out there on the hustings with Mr. Tinubu? And for that matter, why aren't we seeing the Senate President Lawan? I mean, these are the number one, the number two, number three people in this country, and they're all members of the APC.
I don't seem to agree with you that the absence of a president, the vice president, and that of a Senate president has anything to do with division in the party. Absolutely no, and I will explain. Governance is a continuum. There can't be vacuum.
Yeah, absolutely.
The senators actually sit. They sit about 3 times every week. I don't think it's right for the Senate president to leave the work he's been elected to do for 4 years to move around campaigning with a presidential candidate. And neither do I think that the president should leave the business of governance. The president would want to finish very strong. The vice president would like to assist the president to finish very strong. And the president made it very clear to say, listen, even for the ministers, if you would want to be involved in the campaign, you need to give way. Governance has to go on.
Yeah, he did say that. That is true.
And our presidential candidate is also a man of his own. He is not lacking in people. In fact, one of the things that has been downplayed in this campaign is about the teamwork. Because governance is not just one person. There is no messiah that can come from heaven and fix Nigeria overnight. You must be able to have a team of people that it's like a football team. We watched the FIFA World Cup finals yesterday. No matter how messy, the last goal is scored. Someone gave him a pass. So we must also look at it that you must be able to set up a team that has to be able to work with you. And you will work more with the newer people that you're likely to get into position with than with the outgoing people. So the president has come at the opening of the campaign. I'm quite certain that he will also make out some time to attend other rallies.
Okay. I want to thank you very much indeed, Elijah Oyeagbah. You are an interesting person to talk to. Thank you very much indeed for sharing those thoughts, particularly on Burundi. And Elijah Oyeagbah is the Nigerian ambassador to Burundi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.